Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. It's Gaming Friday. I'm Gary.
And I'm Geoff.
And today I'm excited to be playing Blood. Released in May 1997. Geoff, this game's nearly 20 years old.
Oh,
and
Christ.
Right now, it looks it, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it's still,
this was
dated,
one of my favourite opening cinematics to a game. You know, usually games would give you one cinematic at the beginning, maybe one or two in the middle, but usually one right at the end.
Yeah.
I liked this one because I liked the horror aspect of it. I liked the fact that I was going to be playing a bad guy, good guy, in a way.
You didn't see, this was like cutting edge 3D graphics at the time as well, with these these pre-renders when they do you remember StarCraft's pre-renders? It's about that sort of time, isn't it? And
pretty much.
I mean, StarCraft was maybe a little bit better, but I remember StarCraft's graphics being better than they were, because when I went back to look at them after 20 years, you're like, oh shit.
Oh dear.
So there is a bit of that, time, but at the time it was legendary, and I remember this game being, thinking
right
this
now
was
just
brilliant.
had one of the best things that I remember about the game is just the opening where he just climbs out of his grave and says, "I live again." And it's a riff on Army of Darkness where Evil Ash gets out of the grave. We'll get to some of this game's references in a bit. But right now what you're looking at is Blood 1 unit Whole Blood, which includes the original Blood and the add-ons, the Plasma Pack and Cryptic Passage.
Is this like the Game of the Year edition, if it had ever been Game of the Year?
For sure, yeah. Well, I think it's Good Old Games and Steam have had Blood, and I think Good Old Games has Blood 2 as well.
Yeah.
On sale for quite a while now, like I said, with the expansions put in there.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because I've still got my original copy of Doom on the shelf, and it's like, I don't have a disk drive in my new PC. It's not like I can run it.
Yeah. Well,
and
it's not like you need to either. You just get Doom for free these days, can't you?
Well, I purchased the game for £4.
Yeah.
And I think Good Old Games has it for like £7, and that includes Blood 2 as well.
Ah, cool.
So, as you can tell, this is a first-person shooter developed by Monolith Productions and published by GT Interactive Software. Now, Monolith Productions, this was their first ever game. And I have been a somewhat fan of their work throughout the years, all the way up to this year and last year.
Yeah.
They did Blood 2 in 1998. They did Aliens vs Predator 2 in 2001, which is just probably the best Alien and Predator game.
Yeah.
In 2004, though, Monolith were acquired by Warner Brothers, and then we got games like Fear. Yeah. Which, again, just kind of changed the face of first-person shooters within the horror genre.
Yeah.
And then they did two of my favourite games. Condemned, which we've had a look at on Gaming Friday before in 2005, and Condemned 2 in 2008, and then Fear 2 in 2009. It's kind of like they never like to do a third game in their series. There's no Blood 3. Well, actually, Fear carried on, but kind of went downhill. And then, of course, they did Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and coming out this year, Shadow of War. So probably the last one in that franchise, too.
They wouldn't. I mean, you look at that, that's a good pedigree, isn't it? That's a good lineup of
I've not mentioned some of their other games, but they're the fans are out there for their other games, but those are the ones that I know Monolith Studios for, and I've been a fan of ever since this game. Because just look at it, just the flare gun, the pitchfork, the weapons in this game are fantastic at just tearing apart your enemies.
It's
damn rats. Rats are the worst, one of the worst enemies in this game.
It really is like from an era where everybody was trying to outgore themselves, weren't they? And they were trying to be that little bit edgier, that little bit darker.
At this point in time, I could not think in 1997 of a gorier game that I'd ever played. Phantasmagoria I enjoyed, but that was full motion video sort of gore. And
Did you ever play Rise of the Triads?
No, I think I only played the demo for that one. So
I think Rise of Triads, I mean, certainly on a par with this. Rise of Triads might beat it. But I mean, they were trying to outgore each other as much as possible. But it was all in a really tongue-in-cheek, silly sense of humour kind of way.
So, that's what this game exceeds at doing as well with its humour.
Yeah.
Interestingly, this is the Build engine, and Build is a first-person shooter engine that was created by Ken Silverman for 3D Realms.
Well,
You'll probably notice that this engine is the Duke Nukem engine, released a year after Duke Nukem.
Tarted up a bit.
And so it achieved, I think, Duke Nukem in 1996, but there was a couple of other games that also used the same engine that sort of reached critical acclaim, and that was Shadow Warrior.
Yeah.
And, Redneck Rampage.
Yeah.
Other than Blood and Duke Nukem. But Redneck Rampage, again, was a pretty gory shooter game with an offbeat sense of humour.
Yeah.
I just remember going around shooting chickens. But Redneck Rampage was a game that I enjoyed. I felt the similarity coming off of Blood.
Yeah, it was, again, just a really gory but silly, stupid, tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
They were
so
looking
right
for
now,
any premise.
I'm looking around for secrets. Now, I know that inside that furnace there is another secret, but I think there's also an enemy round this corner.
Well, this is the thing with Blood, isn't it? It was absolutely loaded with secrets.
There are so many horror references in the game. It opens with with the I Live Again. Later on, one of the levels. God damn it! Well, I got the fire seed, the health seed. So
yeah,
I got more health.
Lose life to gain life.
I think the Saw is a secret as well. Maybe it's a reference to the Saw films that haven't even been made yet.
Yeah, maybe Saw took inspiration. You never know.
And so there's other lines from Army of Darkness and Evil Dead, like, hey, she-bitch, let's go. Good, bad, I'm the guy with the gun. There's, you go to Morningside Funeral Home, which, if you remember, Phantasm is the location of the cemetery. Mm-hmm. Earlier on, you saw me find Draven's grave, dug up grave, with the crow on it. Mm-hmm. That's obviously from the Crow film.
Yeah. So I mean, what was the premise of this game? Are you are you undead? Are you?
You are now undead. Well, the thing is, it's a revenge story, and it takes place an estimate of time in 1928.
Yeah.
The game manual and the developers never actually gave a specific year for the game, although Blood 2 is set in what we would guess is 2028, because they say it takes place 100 years after the events in Blood.
Right.
So it's hard to place the game in what sort of time it is. But the character that you play is Caleb, and he's a sarcastic kind of guy with a strong sort of ill towards sadism.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was a gunslinger, and he fell in with Ophelia, who I think, and she introduced him to the cult.
Right.
And it's the cult that they are then of the Cabal, which then Caleb works his way up to be sort of one of the main four generals of.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the game, the big boss, the god, sort of dismissed all of you and killed some of them and took others away.
Yeah.
And so each of the 4 levels is you going to try and rescue each one of your comrades.
Yeah.
But you're fighting your cult god's minions throughout.
Right.
Which are at the same time capturing humans and storing them in barrels.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're just like keeping barrels of body parts around for some unknown reason. But it's just a strange cult, let's face it.
So some of the other horror references after the ones we've mentioned, there's a phone. You'll come across a phone, and it'll be someone asking for Mr. Hugh, Mr. Ass Hugh, or Huge Ass, and you're like, that's the Simpsons quote. You'll find rats being grilled, and you'll go, rat burgers, like Demolition Man. You've got the Miskatonic Station, which is obviously from H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Later on, you'll find a severed hand running around in a cell going, I'll swallow your soul, I'll swallow your soul, I'll swallow your soul. Evil Dead 2. There's entire levels in this game that are inspired directly from films, like The Shining.
Yeah.
You find the Haunted Mansion which is just like the mansion from Shining, including the maze. And if you wander around the maze, you'll actually find Jack Nicholson's character hunched over carrying the axe. That's just amazing. There's Psycho's motel, and you can see Norman's mother silhouetted in the window. There's an entire level that's like Crystal Lake, and when you get close to a strange cabin, you can hear the you go inside, and there's Jason's mother's head on the table and Jason's hockey mask and knife on the side.
Yeah, endless. Like, yeah.
2 times, I think, in the game, or even in the sequel, you'll find Freddy Krueger's striped sweater and his hat on the side.
Right.
So Freddy and Jason both got some more cameos in here. When you're on a boat, Caleb quotes, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." There is even, just reviewed 7. You walk into a room and it's filled with the tree-like air fresheners, and the bed is there, but I think there's just a gun on the bed instead of the sloth corpse. It's just there's so many Easter eggs and references. There's Star Wars references, anything that was sort of popular.
Look at you trying to find the fucking...
There's me. I'm trying to find... It's one of those... I know there's secrets upon secrets in this game, and sometimes...
Like you're doing Doom and Doom where you just run along the wall going...
Right, it's the only way to figure it out. You've just got to keep tapping the button, like, is there a secret here? Is there a secret here?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go guns blazing in here. There's actually... I just killed the friendly guy. I didn't mean to kill him, but... And the zombie keeps going. Now, the zombies and the cultists really do make up the bulk of the enemies in the game. There are some variation. There's also underwater fish creatures and fish monsters. There's also fire-breathing hellhounds and gargoyles and spider-type creatures and severed hands and rats.
Right.
As well as... 4, as I said, the 4 different bosses, which is, I think, a giant spider and a giant gargoyle. Variations of the enemies that are sort of within those levels.
Yeah. See, I only ever played this shareware, so...
Now, just like Doom, they released the first few levels as shareware, just sort of to entice you into the game.
That's showing my age, isn't it? Shareware.
Shareware. Well, it was the demos, essentially, weren't they?
Well, it was more than a demo. It was a chunk of the game. They used to give you a chunk of the game for free, and then they'd be like, "Here, you like that? Well, there's another 3/4. The rest of the 3/4 of this game, you can have it for relatively cheap as well." Like, I remember they were usually better value than the full retail stuff as well. Yeah, no, it was good. I used to love a bit of shareware, mate. I used to think that was a great practice.
Absolutely, yeah. I used to love sort of PlayStation magazines that would give like bundled demo discs. You got a sample
CDs.
Of like 8 to 15 sort of demos or more.
CDs of shareware, brilliant, and demos, fantastic.
So,
long gone.
More nostalgia aside, the reason why I like this game is because it sort of has the benchmark of all the sort of levels that you come across in all the generic first-person shooters that have sort of followed it.
Yeah.
You have the mortuary, train station, the sewer, the hospital, the lumber mill, the haunted house, the castle, the city area.
Yeah.
Although this game does have a couple of innovative sort of areas. I remember a level where it was like you're inside a body, where all the walls are just made out of flesh. As something that we would see Doom do, or Doom 3 and onwards, when they had more sort of graphics to play with.
Gore strewn up all the walls,
Absolutely, so it's literally blood everywhere. It's got to keep within the game's name.
It's so of its time as well. Do you know what I mean? Like 1997.
Well, like developers were free to do what they wanted.
Goth was in, and that's it. It was like an in-between stage where people were always trying to like outshock the other ones, you know what I mean? It was like black comedy. They were like, it was a period of time where we were like, how black can we go in our comedy? Yeah. And there was just, like you say, all rules were off. All the censors started to get involved, and people started whinging and moaning
about the content, the graphic content. Well, this game was hit with it too.
To be fair, you did have like Trenchcoat Mafia, and then you had what was it, Columbine, and all that sort of stuff. So it started to get really like heated.
Guns in video games. Yeah,
guns in video games, ultra violence, all that sort of stuff. And so people started to back away from it a bit, and started to feel like it was a bit tasteless. But there was something incredibly good fun.
Which is why, as you said, the tongue-in-cheek humour, though, it kind of off-balances it entirely.
Absolutely. I mean, it is of our era, this kind of black comedy, where it's just like really, really dark, but also just so flippant, you know?
Yeah.
But, so, I mean, that is this game, you know, in spades, basically. That's what this game is all about.
I'll just say one of my favourite levels in this game is the carnival attraction level, where after the train, I think, gets derailed and you end up in this carnival, and there are all the sort of attractions there with, like, shooting the glass bottles, where you can actually win prizes, which are, like, power-ups. There's, like, kick the severed heads into an open and closing mouth, which for whatever reason reminds me of Splatterhouse, or especially the remake Splatterhouse. And it was just a great level, and it had mimes that you could kill in any way that you like. There's actually an Easter egg or a secret area. When you open the door, there's like 15 mimes come pouring out of it, and you can just
Jesus Christ
dynamite them, flare gun them, pitchfork them.
It's like I'm back in 1997.
Yes,
yeah, it's not that long ago, 20 years. Oh God,
so Blood is pretty much organized into 4 episodes, and each episode containing like 8 to 9 different maps, which then consist of 6 to 7 sort of regular levels and 1 boss level at the end of each one of those, with all the enemies and weapons that you go through. Now, the weapons in this game, as I've mentioned some of them before, we've seen the shotgun, the flare gun, the TNT, and there are some other weapons like the Tommy gun, which you get later on, which, you know, it's just a...
secrets,
I remembered where a few of them are. Now, I pushed this switch, but I can't figure out what it opens. So, it's like... and the thing is with this game, everything can kill you, including the secrets.
Right.
If a door closes on you, you're dead. Any door.
Cool.
If a secret sort of lowers a panel down and you go running over it to get into that room, and then you're backing out of it and you get pushed up with it, you just get crushed into the ceiling.
Cool.
If you fall off the edges, you can on some levels, like you're on high rooftops, you can fall. This is one of the games that sort of give me that vertigo fear of falling and dying in video games, especially considering this game doesn't have an autosave. You're encouraged to just make your own saves, but you know, when you get into the flow of the game, you don't always want to save it, so then you just,
and you're like, damn it,
I've got to do the whole level again. But what I found with this game, and in re-exploring this game, in refinding this game, was that the difficulty is still there. Right now I'm playing this on its easiest difficulty setting, and occasionally I'm struggling. It's because I can't remember the enemy placements, what weapons are best used against enemies, and so secret. Another secret, and so there are other weapons, including napalm launcher, which is essentially a rocket launcher. The flamethrower is basically an aerosol can and a lighter. And one of my favorite weapons is the voodoo doll. Basically, you just keep stabbing the voodoo doll, whatever enemies you're looking at, and they'll just take some damage. It's not the best weapon, but it's thematic. It fits the whole horror,
creative,
horror
aspect. You gotta give it to that. What other game has a voodoo doll as a weapon?
None. That like the Blood 2.
It's good. It's good.
So so the difficulty is frustrating, and there are some levels which I praise this game's level design, but there are some levels which require you to do a lot amount of jumping.
You're right.
And
you hate that shit.
I hate jumping in first-person shooter games. It's like, I don't want to play a platformer. I'm not playing Mario or Sonic. I'm playing Blood. Why do I have to jump? And if I fall, die instantly. Forcing you to take a moment out of the game to save it so that you can keep attempting this jump over and over and over again. There's other sequences where you need to jump on platforms, and if you fail, you fall into water. Falling into water where there's like piranha fucking fish, and you need to then swim away. Also, if you stay underwater too long, you'll suffocate, you know, and so you need to swim back up and then attempt the jumping again. And you find out that you end up making the jump, saving the game, making the jump, saving the game, and that's just the worst. It's one of those annoyances, but you kind of take it. I do anyway, as part of the nostalgia of playing a game from this era. This game really could do with being remade instead of just re-released on Steam and on good old games. it needs the graphic update. It needs just to be treated. Now, I also have had an extensive problem just getting this game to run and getting it to to look good on a modern television screen,
right.
and also getting it to handle and play properly.
Okay.
Just because the controls have been a nightmare. Because of coming from being a console gamer and going back to PC gaming, playing this with a keyboard and mouse, and I just walked off the train.
Yeah, I mean, this is before even really people were using keyboard and mouse properly. Do you know what I mean? Like keyboard
Well, the
and
game's
mouse
configuration.
Even then, first, this is first-person shooters in its infancy. Still,
Definitely,
really.
yes, yeah, but it's still a freaking nightmare, and even 20 years later, it's still a freaking nightmare. Now, I've heard that you're probably better off getting the good old games version of the game because its default controller configuration has been optimized, unlike the Steam version of the game, which is as the game was, you know?
Right.
So I've purchased, this is the Steam version that I've played, and when you start, it's not WASD, it's arrow keys and the number pad, which was just a nightmare, and mouse control as well.
That's what I mean.
But with the mouse control,
pre-WASD, man.
With the mouse control, when you right-click the mouse, you move forwards. When you move the mouse forwards and backwards, you move forwards and backwards. So it was kind of strafing type of thing.
Did you have to do it so that you had? What I would do with Doom was I would make the spacebar mouse look, and on Doom you used to have it pressed down to be able to do mouse look.
Right.
So you would just rest either your palm on it whilst I had WASD, so it was always on my thumb on it. Some people would even go and get a heavy book and just put that on top of the spacebar so they could then
just
have
locked
mouse
in. Right.
That's the first pro Doomers used to do that. Because it was the first pro Doomers when they were doing multiplayer that really figured out, oh fuck, WASD is the best place to have everything.
Yeah.
Because you got everything that you need at your fingertips.
And it's been there ever since.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's the pros that determined it, but the developers at this time were still fucking moving things around with arrow keys, and it was all over the place. So
yeah,
you know.
So yeah, optimizing this game when I got it was a bit of a nightmare, and I ended up looking around online to find controller support for the game, and people have said that they're enjoying playing the game using the Steam controller, which is great. I don't have one of those. I've got an Xbox One controller and a 360 controller.
Oh, I got a Steam controller downstairs. You should just give me a shout.
I got the Xbox One controller connected to the PC, and I downloaded, I think it's called Pinnacle Controller
Game Profiler,
Profiler. And out there is a profile for Doom. For Blood. So I've got the profile on there, and then I got the controller working, but only to an extent. Only so far would it go, even after optimizing it, and you cannot... I'd not figured out a way, basically, to get the controller to play the game as fluidly as I'd become adept with changing it to WASD controls and sort of hodgepodging where I think the controls are. So if you're watching me play this and you're like, Gary, you are all over the place, it's because, I've got spacebar as jump, I've got E as my interact button, and Z is crouch, and, the strafe is like left and right cursor, and the mouse is all over the place. Now, I think there is a way to actually, because I'm not able to look up and down, and I think there is an option somewhere to enable mouse to actually change to look up and down instead of...
What you need to do is, you need to configure it so you have a mouse look on a button.
Yeah.
It will almost certainly
Doom,
be like Doom and Duke Nukem.
Yeah.
Because it's the same engine, so you just get mouse look on a button, which you can, like spacebar for instance.
Yeah.
Move... I think it's the reason why I jump with left shift. Everybody defaults jump as spacebar now, and left shift as sprint. But for me, spacebar became my sprint button, and the left shift was the jump button, because initially I wasn't using spacebar for anything, because I would have it just always down pressed, and it would be my mouse look. So that's why I've evolved to use my little finger for my jumping. So you might find that you may end up having to do that if
I'll
you're
give
going
it
to
a
play
try,
something
but
like
for me,
this.
still spacebar is my jump button.
That's
because it's the most
muscle
frequent
memory.
Muscle memory. That's right. Yeah. So I had a couple of problems getting the game to run, and I think people on Good Old Games have had less difficulties with that. Other than that, once I got used to it and optimized the keys, this game was running smoothly. It runs in DOS, You know, it's a DOS box.
Yeah, it's a DOS game. Isn't it?
So you can sort of play it full screen. And it looks a bit stretched and warped on your monitor. Yeah, you got a mirror reflection. That's me. And but you can go in there and change the resolution somewhat. I think the maximum I got it to was 1024, which is what we're looking at.
1024 by 768.
Something like that. Yeah. I'm not the biggest person when it comes to knowing what each of the resolutions are, but it was the maximum option I could have with the game, which I was kind of happy with.
It's old 4:3 format, and it's not even widescreen.
No, so it ended up stretching the image, but it ended up boxing it and got it to the way that it looks, or the way that I remember it looking on an old monitor.
Oh, yeah, even like cool. He's even got cool.
It's an actual reflection as well. So
I gotta say, the animations on this were
so
much better than the Duke Nukem.
Yes, definitely.
They absolutely smashed it.
Watching an enemy get set on fire, explode, watch the skeleton materialize, and then watch it dissolve into the floor.
Head pop off and roll down the floor.
The voice acting is great. Kicking severed heads around like footballs. The amount of secrets in this game. It's just so good. This game is a nostalgic treasure to behold and was absolutely my favourite of all of the games that we've mentioned. You know, some of the other ones that we haven't was like Hexic and Quake and some of the others. Hexen, sorry, and but this was my favourite because of the sense of humour. You know, Duke Nukem, had the strippers and the nudity, but this game had more humour for me because of it playing to any fan of the horror genre.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you've never played this game and you're a fan of horror movies, you must get this game. You need to play this game. Even if you burn out on it after a couple of hours, you will still experience what I consider to be one of the staples in what shaped what my interest would be in first-person shooter games to come.
It's a technical achievement as well, really, because I mean, what they did with this engine, you know, it's not even a true 3D engine, but they've made it. No, it's not. But they've made you believe it is. They've made it as 3D as they possibly can.
It's 2.5. Yeah,
as 3D as they possibly can. And they really did very well with that. And they've used all sorts of clever little tricks, so you can move around some things. Because I mean, like,
there's so many interactable items.
You still get it with the bodies on the floor, where they follow your perspective, so you always see them, no matter where you're looking at them. At the same angle.
The Tommy gun.
Oh, I remember the Tommy gun. But then there was other items in here which you could actually look around.
Yes.
Like the greystones and stuff. It changes perspective with you.
Yeah.
So they had actually properly 3D modelled objects in the game, which Duke Nukem didn't really have. Like, look, that's spinning around like that. So they did very clever little tricks to make it as 3D as possible.
Yep.
And they done a stellar job with the technology at the time. It was definitely a good evolution forward. You know, it advanced the first-person shooter genre at the time as well. So, and like you say, it's got everything else you want, really. A silly story, loads of Easter eggs and gags, and loads of blood and gore. What more can you want?
Absolutely. This game is fun. It's violent as hell. It's gory as hell. It's got funny one-liners, the horror and the pop culture. It's just all over the place. Great weapons, great voice acting, interesting level design. It's cheap price, and for me it pushes every single nostalgia button. And I think right now we're just coming to the carnival level. I think I can hear the carnival music in the background. And I think in the carnival as well is one of my favourite Easter eggs in the whole game. And that is that of, we'll just have a quick look around here. It's of Duke Nukem. And of all the characters that I would have expected to find in this game, Duke Nukem, ladies and gentlemen, with a leg and arms removed, hanging from a chain, and Caleb taunts him by going, "Shake it, baby! Shake it, baby!"
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that Easter egg. That was fucking brilliant.
Well, that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. I just want to say thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. We're back next Friday with another video game. Of course, film reviews on Thursdays. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Patreon. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.
Take it easy. Don't show me in that Easter egg. Oh, shit.